He ignored his obligation to his God. And he disregarded his duty to himself. Will Lewis had an adulterous affair. That is a fact beyond dispute. But that is not why we're here. Because if that were the only issue involved, you would never have been seated as a jury, because that's an admitted fact. It takes something more than an affair to indict somebody or convict somebody for either one of these two charges. And we know that for one simple reason. We didn't indict our governor. We didn't. What you have in this case is an affair. That is all they can prove to prove any misconduct in office under either count. And I can prove it to you very simply right now. If Will Lewis had never had the affair, would he be indicted for paying his administrative assistant too much? Would he be indicted for going to Charlotte, North Carolina, and spending 2 nights with the county administrator to discuss the budget because that wasn't a good expense? No, he wouldn't have been. The only thing that the state uses to make those things seem sinister, evil, and bad is he had an affair. You will not hear a scintilla of evidence, I imagine, in this case, that he didn't run his sheriff's department properly. You will never hear a scintilla of evidence that he wasn't concerned about the men that worked under him. You will not hear that he was a bad sheriff as sheriff. You will hear that he disregarded his duty to the electors by not being a good, upstanding, moral person. We don't indict people for moral failings. We indict people for doing things criminally wrong. And all this is an indictment for moral failings. Now they're going to say, oh, he paid this 22, 23-year-old girl $60-something thousand a year. Wow. He came in the middle of a budget. It had to be approved through the county first. And in addition, when she left, the person that took her place got even more money. You will hear that Savannah Neighbors, when she filed her lawsuit against the county, one of her complaints was she worked too much. She didn't make enough money. I'm entitled to overtime in addition to what I got. So none of this is about anything other than having an affair. And that's it. And that by itself is not illegal. That doesn't fall under the criteria of what we have to do here about determining misconduct in office or misconduct by a public official. They deal with things that involve the operation of the office. You know, whether you are doing your job right, whether you're showing up even. You know, under the vague, and one of these vague indictments, I guess theoretically, if an elected official for a district showed up 30 minutes late every day, you could indict him for misconduct of a public official because he wanted to work on time. That's obviously not going to happen. So what this case here is about an affair. Yes, there's going to be an allegation that the sexual act in Charlotte was not consensual. It's going to be salacious. I think when you listen to all the testimony, there will be absolutely no doubt in your mind that it was consensual, that it was. We're not here today to defend Will Lewis's moral lapse of judgment. That is not the issue. The issue is not whether you 12 get to decide who the next sheriff is, but whether the electors in November, if he chooses to run again, get to decide. Yes, elected officials are held to a level of accountability, and they're held to a level of accountability by the people who put them in office. And that's what we've got to get back to here. As I say, it's only about the adultery. Because he would never been indicted and sitting here if he paid his administrative assistant too much. If he had, not tried to pursue an affair with a subordinate. That is a terrible idea. It's a stupid idea. It's a foolish idea. It's not criminal. That's the point. Being a cad, if you want to put it that way, is unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, not criminal. It is bad behavior. It is bad judgment. Don't indict people for bad judgment. If we indicted the public officials for bad judgment, every time a public official goes off to some meeting somewhere and stays in a $300 room instead of a $150 room, that's bad judgment. But we don't indict them for bad judgment. We indict them for actual criminal acts. Stealing. Actually taking money from the coffers of the agency there to serve. Covering up crime. Covering up things. That's what we indict them for. Don't indict them for bad judgment. We don't indict them for pursuing an affair. That is just, not done. And that's what we have here. So if you hear any testimony beyond an affair that impacted Will Lewis's performance of his duty, his performance of sheriff, it's going to be interesting to hear, because I don't think you're going to hear it. You're going to hear salacious stuff. You're going to hear conversations that really, to be frank with you, they really do cut both ways as far as the relationship between Savannah neighbors and Mr. Lewis, even after the incident in Charlotte. You don't hear him berating her and all this. You hear, at times, almost a sincere friendship on both their parts. And she ultimately, went public with it. It became a source of conversation. She filed suit. And when he got on television and that's not even probable. He did the only honorable thing he did since that night in Charlotte. He went on public television at a press conference and said, yes, I had an affair. I regret it. He's asked forgiveness. That is the only honorable thing he did in relation to this incident since that night. But he owned up to it. He owned up to it, as he should have. But that does not make him guilty of either misconduct in office, which requires that he violates some duty imposed by the law, and you'll find there's no violation of any duty imposed by the law. That does not make him guilty of misconduct of a public official, which requires that basically that he recklessly did some conduct that hurt his office. It won't be that. He had an affair. That is not right. It is just not criminal. When you go to your jury room, you'll have your little pads with you. And you can do this if you want to. Take one pad, one sheet, 2 sheets, 3 sheets, doesn't make any difference. You can write down all y'all's opinions about Will Lewis after this trial. And you can write them on that. And if it takes 3 sheets, 4 sheets, 5 sheets, it takes that long. All 12 of you can sign it. And you can attach those comments to the indictment, or the 2 indictments. But there's one thing you can't do under the facts that are going to be proven in this court. You're not going to be able to write the word guilty on the indictment. Your comments on your notepads will stay with the record in this courtroom. I think when you listen to the evidence in this case, the only verdict you